All right, so this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by committee members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will broadcast live and be recorded on eCat. To use Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application and create an account, or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. While conducting meetings remotely, we'll endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to standard procedures as possible. However, use of the platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While committee members and applicants will be on video and audio, public participation will join the webinar as attendees, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using their raise hand function, or make a request with the Q&A function, or if joining by phone, hit *9 to raise your hand. Here comes Kelly. And if an applicant wishes to display materials, send them to the chair and email materials to the committee staff for sharing. While starting testimony, please be sure to state your name and address for the record. And as in any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled in the order indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting to allow for timely logins and remote attendance. Committee members are asked to announce themselves while making a motion and second, so that it will be clear to the audience and many takers who made motions, and all votes will be by roll call. When business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meeting, signaling the end of the meeting and the termination of the eCat recording. All participants will be disconnected from the webinar at that time. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining. All right, so let's see. Looks like we have quorum. Let's go ahead and take roll.
Archer here.
Chan here.
Devonshire here.
Emmons here.
Foster here.
Hirschman here.
Emma Hirschman here.
Garcia here.
All righty, we're on to a great start. Thank you, everyone. So it's 6:33. We have quorum. We will call the meeting to order. Review and approve of minutes. So Amy did send out the minutes and have put them on the Google Drive. Did everybody get a chance to review them? Any questions?
Amy did a very good job with a very involved meeting with a lot of information, and so I think we should give kudos to Amy for doing that.
Thank you, Amy. All right, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved. Foster.
Second, Barger.
Okay, a vote to approve the meeting minutes?
Barger, yes.
Chan, yes?
Devonshire, yes.
Emmons, yes.
Foster, yes.
Hirschman, yes.
Emma Hirschman, yes.
Garcia, yes.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item on our agenda is HRC collaboration. And maybe we'll start with the schools. Beth, do you want to go ahead and give an update on some recent activities with the superintendent meeting? And then I know there was a DEIA meeting as well.
So I apologize, I missed the meeting yesterday because I was sick for the superintendent's meeting. The meeting before, I did go to the DEIA meeting. They're trying to start one at the middle school, a similar committee and involvement with parents there. They're also trying to get input from for their strategic plan. So if you're going to any of their meetings, they're doing this exercise, looking for insight. They did talk a little bit about, it was the day that it was released, that there was some graffiti that was found in one of the bathrooms. It looks like there was anti-Semitic graffiti as well as some racist graffiti. It was both in the same bathroom. Some of the follow-up questions that I asked. So in the same bathroom, seems to be related. They don't think it's different people who wrote it. The investigation is still ongoing. I know that there was another letter that got sent out today that it was still ongoing, and that they're doing some follow-up. They'll be having orange ribbons to kind of speak out against what was going on. And then there's a speaker coming in March. It was already scheduled. This wasn't a reaction from that, just to learn a little bit more about, sounds more about empathy and understanding different perspectives. So that's the most that I have on that, but they were pretty forthcoming. Obviously they can't say much because it's an active investigation, but even if they do find the person who did it, they won't ever identify them because of privacy rules. But regardless, they do plan on some sort of restorative type reaction as well.
So I don't have the communication because I don't have an OA high school student at this point. Beth, do you mind circulating that to the group?
Yeah, I can forward it along.
Okay, thank you. And then, yes, that was the call that I received today from Deputy Chief Adams, just to provide that similar update, which is that it's still an active investigation, and the police is working very closely with the school to just ensure that the safety, of course, of the students and the impact there. So that's still ongoing. Emma, from your perspective, anything that you're hearing from the school, reaction, students?
No, I mean, you know that they can only tell us so much. I think I got the same exact email, if not something like slightly different. That was just for the students. I don't even know what it was. They wouldn't give out like any like specificities. Like, I heard the exact same things, and I have not heard teachers or really students talk about it. They did on Monday, yesterday, so I was sick, so I wasn't at school, but they did a like orange like ribbon thing, and everyone like supposedly wore orange ribbons. I actually don't know how it went because I wasn't there, but I'm not really sure how that actually played out. It was just, I think it was just supposed to be in like support of like equality, not even specifically like Judaism or whatnot. It was just for equality. I'm not actually sure how much participation that got.
Okay, thank you. And then Beth, what was the training that's being planned, or the
That's
session?
actually in the letter too, and so it looks like, and it was yesterday, I apologize, I was just going through emails today, I didn't go on email yesterday. It says this week we'll be distributing orange ribbons in our school to wear in solidarity and support the culture and identities of our staff and students, especially our Jewish and BIPOC community members who were targeted with this hateful writing. The orange color is not only one of our school color, but orange ribbons represent cultural diversity awareness. We look forward to everybody with these orange ribbons this week. So I don't think it was just the day, I think it looks like the week. And then it says, additionally, we have a guest speaker, Dr. Maik Fowlin, scheduled to present to students and parents on March 4th. Dr. Fowlin is a clinical psychologist and a professional actor whose presentation, You Don't Know Me Until You Know Me, takes the audience on an experiential journey to re-examine core perceptions they have learned about others to help transform the world for good. Details will be shared in the upcoming newsletter. I tried to cut and paste the letter and put it in the chat, but I think it's too big. Karen, I just sent it to you if you want to forward it to everybody.
Okay, will do, thank you.
I have a question about the speaker. Is that for the whole school, or what, how does that work? Do
It
you know?
says students and parents. So I'm assuming it's OA, but if it's opened up, I'm not quite sure. It just says further details will be made available.
I believe the
Thank you.
intent is to open it up to the community in the evening so that parents can attend and understand the messaging that was delivered during the day. So there'll be 2 sessions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so that'd be great. And then I guess once we learn more about that session on March 4th, we can go ahead and share that with our allies as well. Okay. Anything else from the school perspective, Kelly, that you might want to share that Beth didn't cover?
No, we were at the same meeting. I think one thing that came through for me is that there is a goal as we rewrite the strategic plan to ensure that we think about all elements of the school community. And so there was definitely suggestions from that event around thinking about some of the human component, some of the diversity of staff, some of the expectations for what it feels like for students, but there's a lot of exercises going on around the strategic plan, and that will continue throughout the year. We are in the year of renewal for that plan.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, any other collaboration activities? I don't know if anybody's been in touch with RMK, any additional events that they have planned coming up?
I haven't been in touch with RMK Karen, but Kirsty from the NRT did reach out to see if we wanted to help out and potentially have a booth at a STEAM night that the NRT is actually in charge of, but it's let me see, I'm just like pulling up the details. It's pre-K through second grade. I guess it would probably be at Blanche Ames, and they have all kinds of people coming and having tables and doing projects with the kids. So if we wanted to have a presence, she would welcome the help. I guess we would probably have a table and run some kind of project. Let's see, when is it? Friday, May 3rd from 6:30 to 8. So I thought I'd offer it up. It might be a good way to have a presence and I don't know, make some connections with some parents.
Okay, any thoughts on that from the committee?
You're saying it's at the middle, where would it be at Blanche Ames or where?
It just says it's for EPS, but she said it's pre-K through second grade. So she doesn't say where, but I'm assuming it would be at Blanche Ames.
So this is from the NRT?
Yeah, so they run it. They run the whole thing. So they're reaching out to different community members who they've partnered with in the past to see if we want to participate. Yes, it's a STEAM focused thing, but it's also a good way to, you know, get some visibility in the community. So I said I would offer it up.
So it is after the kindergarten registration starts. So pre-K would therefore potentially embrace families who are newer to the EPS system, who are just getting started in that journey. So that could be a nice way to also connect with some families that might be newer to some of what we have available in town.
Have they always been the hosts? The NRT?
I have no idea.
About event, but I didn't realize that they were the ones who hosted.
I don't know if they, I don't know. I mean, Kirsty does, I think she's the education director there. So I mean, obviously they do a lot around town. So I don't know if it's the first time they're in charge or not. Oh, I guess there's a committee. So maybe she's on the committee. So maybe it's more people involved than just the NRT.
So, Amy, would you think we would need to have some kind of activity or just simply a table for Human Rights Committee so people who, as Kelly said, are newer to the town would get to know that there is a Human Rights Committee, a functioning Human Rights Committee here in town?
She said she would take any kind of support she could get, whether we wanted to just volunteer or we wanted just to have a table or we wanted to do an activity. I mean, I think it's pretty, at this point we have like our table booth pretty much like
In a box.
packaged up. It's like, you know, NRT booth in a box, you know, but I would love to commit to an activity too. I think that would be fun. You always get more people drawn into the table if there's some kind of activity. I don't think it has to be anything particularly fancy. I think it could be something along the lines of an arts and craft project that we've done before. I probably have to put a little thought into it to make sure it's STEAM appropriate, but there's the A is the arts, so any kind of arts and crafts project would probably be okay, but
I smell tie-dye t-shirts, Emma. STEM like tie-dye.
it's definitely not an indoor activity.
Not an indoor activity, Beth. It's not an indoor activity.
Yeah, definitely do something, but I don't know about tie-dye.
Yeah, I
Or maybe
volunteered.
some bracelet making sounds like an easy one.
We've done that. We've been Karen Sauce, PTSD bracelet. No. I know. I totally can commit to this and maybe tell Kirsty, that if people agree, maybe we agree to have a booth, and then I can do a little digging on projects and bring some to the next meeting. It's all the way in May, which feels like ages from now to me.
I volunteered Child to test the activities on Amy.
Awesome.
I think that sounds great, Amy, but I'm gonna say I'm not gonna let you lead this. I'll take this one on. We have Pride, we're planning.
No, but listen, this would be another great way to advertise for Pride, honestly, too.
Right.
Like,
Alright,
so we can partner, Karen.
okay, we'll partner. Okay, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and vote for participation in STEAM night on March 3rd at 6:30.
March or May?
May.
Sorry,
May
May
3rd.
3rd. From 6:30 to 8 p.m. at, we think, maybe Blanche James. HRC participation in that
Yep,
event.
just to make total minor details, 6:30 to 8. Wait, did you say 8:30?
No, I said 8.
Okay, sorry, 6:30 to 8, you got it.
All right. Do I have a vote to proceed?
Audrey, yes?
Chan, yes?
Devonshire, yes.
Evans, yes. Foster, yes.
Gershman, yes.
Emma Gershman, yes.
Versio, yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. So do we have a point of contact at RMK? Somebody kind of still reaching out to them on the regular just to see if there's anything going on that we can collaborate with?
I will.
Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you. So I do have an update on the HRC coalition, but I'm actually going to save it for item D because we met around community statements. So I'll just kind of speak to that in a minute. Maybe moving on to events. The spring education event. I know, Beth, you and Craig were kind of talking through potential opportunities there. Have you landed on anything yet?
Well, now that Kathy's back, the three of us can meet. So if anyone wants to jump on, let us know, and I'll shoot out an email tonight.
Yeah, we're certainly not meeting at your house, that's for damn sure.
Oh, yeah, it needs to be fun.
Or your house, Craig. I mean,
Yeah, right.
Well, I know, at least some of us went to the Hingham event. Is that something we are thinking about replicating?
Yes. So the rise of extremism, is that the one, Kathy? Yes.
Yes.
I thought that was a really good topic to bring forward because they talked about just social media training, the opportunity for greater training and understanding of what's happening and how social media is being used. So I think that would be that's definitely one of the contenders. We talked about a few other topics as well. So I know that we had agreed at the last meeting to go ahead and create the subcommittee to begin planning for it. So I'll let you guys get that going, and then hopefully by our next meeting, we can kind of get that solidified and start to communicate, getting that moving.
So Beth, you want to do it on Zoom or you want to do it in person? How do you want to do it?
I'm happy to meet in person and towards the end of the week. I should be better by then. I'll shoot out an email to the three of us.
Okay.
And then if
All right.
anyone else wants to join on, just let me know.
Okay, and just to follow up to that, so we talked about, and I know this is all in the minutes, but we talked about the opportunity to introduce this training, this spring training, to the community, as well as just being able to kind of address some of the concerns that were raised about our statement on the October 7th incident. And so, utilizing this opportunity to kind of communicate about the training, to kind of tie to some of those concerns that were raised, and just kind of making sure that we make that connection. Because I know that was something that we brought forward at the last meeting. I know, Kathy, you weren't there, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, also the school. Carol said that she's happy to join us too, but I figured it'd be good for us to meet and get an outline, and then we can bring them in.
Yeah, then we can decide who it is that we want to add, whether we want to add somebody like Carol's or Masa or et cetera. Yeah, okay.
And I am all for anything we plan. If we can join another group to help us plan it, I think that really behooves us in terms of expanding the number of people we can get and also the manpower to organize it. So you know, as we get closer to figure out exactly what we want, I think we should reach out to other groups and see if anybody else wants to sponsor it with us.
That sounds great. All right, Pride event, our 2024 Pride event. So I'll turn over to Amy in a minute, but you know, we have been looking for a location, and I did reach out to Connor Reed, our town administrator, and he provided a response that, gosh, Amy, what date was it?
June 15th.
June 15th, that Connor would be able to work with, and he got kind of sign off from fire and police and the town to ensure that we could leverage the space or utilize the space right on Main Street, kind of like right outside the Rockery area or outside of Oaks Ames, right? And that they would be able to close off streets similar to how we have other festivals in town. We could leverage that space for Pride. And I think that's a great option for us. I think June 15th works out really well in terms of a date. We weren't necessarily set on any particular date anyway. And we think this is a great location for us. It would have great visibility for sure, lots of obviously just walking traffic, and certainly an area that we think would gain a lot of just visibility across the town. So, so that looks like our first choice for a location, maybe our only choice for a location. Any reactions from the committee, any concerns from that standpoint?
I'm absolutely thrilled, and I appreciate Connor and Craig. I'm sure you had something to do with this, and Dottie too. And I'm super excited. I think there'll be, like, I have so many logistical questions, Karen. So, the NRT was familiar, and I knew that there was a ton of help. So this might be like somewhat a can of worms for the first year again. But I'm willing to take it on, and I'm so excited to have the town behind us.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Amy, if we could work with the Lions, maybe, considering.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if anyone knows anyone who's on the Lions who plans the Holiday Fest. Might have some intel on how to use the space and how to work with DPW and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, John was excellent to work with when.
Oh, I'm sure. He helped.
Yeah.
Do you remember John Morgan helped with the original, the Unity project? He helped. He and I were literally out there hammering in posts. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Who helped with the one this summer? Was that also the Lions? When they had the bands and stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We've done something a couple times, not just with Christmas event or the Rockery event. So I'm hoping that they have the game plan down.
And is that woman Isabel, the realtor, is she in the Lions?
I don't know.
It's Chamber of Commerce.
She's Chamber of Commerce, I think.
Oh, okay.
She's a good person to reach out to, Kathy.
Yeah. She loves us.
Okay, so that's location. Amy, I'll turn it over to you on anything else that we can get moving on.
That's it. I think we just need to we needed the location now. I mean, some things we've got down to a science, and a lot of the new stuff we'll have to work out, but let's start our regular check-ins. I'm away the rest of this week, but maybe we start as early as next week, and at the very least, list out all of our open questions and start splitting up who to contact and how to get answers.
So do we have a subcommittee?
We did. We voted on a subcommittee last time, Kathy. Can't remember if I put your name on it in the minutes anyway. But yeah, Beth, me, Emma. I think I made Emma do it. I can't remember. I'd have to go look at my notes. Karen, I think. Anyone else who wants to be on the subcommittee, just let me know. I'll share the details.
Would I be able to? I'd like to be on it.
Yeah, awesome.
Me too.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And you know, in terms of Lions Club, I think that's where we have to start. And even if we don't know anybody, we just call them and talk to them.
I'll email John Morgan.
Amy, we have a connection with the Lions that we can talk through.
Okay.
there is an old dance connection that you and I can do.
Okay, awesome. Yeah,
One big
share-
family that doesn't go away.
I corresponded with John. It's been a while, but I'll also reach out to him because I think as far as logistics go, he probably is the most amazing person to contact.
And maybe
He's my neighbor, so I'd be happy to help you with that, Amy.
Okay. Okay.
for our first meeting, we should include him, and he can talk about what they've done, and so we can
Okay.
go from the beginning.
Yeah, the committee was, Karen, Michelle, Amy, Emma, and Beth. So you wanna throw Kathy's name in there, that's fine, I'm just reading from your minutes.
Be quiet because Beth is asleep.
I'm wide awake.
Okay, excellent, thank you, everyone. Wow, we're just flying through the agenda. Okay, so the next topic is community statements, and so, last time we met and a concerned community member did bring forward our statement around October 7th events and some concerns that were raised about the tone of our comment and our statement. And interestingly enough, so back to kind of the reference around the HRC Coalition. So the HRC Coalition, we meet on a monthly basis. It's a group of folks who represent various HRCs and other types of DEIA groups throughout Massachusetts who kind of come together on a monthly basis and talk through various best practices, issues, topics that they're challenged with. And one in particular that came up at one of our recent meetings was around these community statements. And so a subgroup was formed to actually talk through just a community statement toolkits. Like, is there an opportunity to kind of create one for use across all of our towns and just have some kind of leveraging some best practices from each other and do's and don'ts, right? Because I think this is obviously becoming a much more hot topic, not just within HRCs, but obviously with universities, whatever you're seeing on the news around that as well. So we met actually yesterday, timely enough, for this meeting. It was an excellent conversation. There was great representation from many, many towns. I'll just name a few. New Bedford was on, Hingham, Salem, Barnstable County, Ipswich, Arlington, Needham, Winchester, Peabody. And it was just a really honest, open conversation about some of the challenges that we've had around community statements and reactions to our statements. And then people just kind of shared conversations around impact, intent, right? And really, what we're doing about these going forward. And so I heard some great things that I just wanted to bring back to the committee, some things that kind of excited me, and I think that, maybe we might want to consider. Certainly, we talked about the sense of urgency, right? The timeliness of messages. And we all kind of agreed that sometimes we feel the pressure to comment quickly, and then, whether or not we're making good decisions when we feel rushed. So the balance of that, just how do we balance that, thinking that through, because when we act quickly, we may omit, kind of important details. We might not necessarily be thinking through all the perspectives. And one particular person brought up, I think it was the town of Winchester, that they actually have a group of people that they utilize to help kind of bounce statements off of. And so, based on the impacted parties of the statement, they might reach out to this group. So it sounds like our allies, but a much kind of smaller group and very trusted in terms of, whether it's because they're extra vocal and have been partners with us, but representing all of our kind of marginalized groups so that we feel like we could go to them and bring a statement to them for reaction and feedback. And that I thought was really interesting. I think of people like Masa. I think of people who, you know, that we have worked with in the past, or who can certainly kind of provide input and other perspectives, and that might be something we may want to consider. So that was one thing that was brought forward that I thought I'd bring back to this group. I don't know if there's any reaction to that, any kind of questions around that before I proceed.
Karen, is that a group of citizens, or is it a professional group? I mean, is it, I mean, some, you know, for example, the police department has somebody that does their public statements, or to a certain, whatever happens, they run it by some kind of I don't even know what it's called. But is it that kind of a group, or is it individual members of the community?
It's individual members of the community. But I did hear that there are other entities like what you're mentioning as well, that you can also kind of bounce off statements with, but I think that's more of a paid situation. Mm-hmm. And you use them as like consultants more so. I don't think that's what we're interested in here.
No, I think it's a great idea, but I think there are people on our ally list who are from a myriad of backgrounds that could, if they were willing to volunteer, to be sort of a sounding board. So when we develop a statement, that we share it with them and we get their feedback before we send it out.
I mean, it would certainly lengthen, right, our timeliness, kind of going back to like sense of urgency and things like that. But I do think it would take into account maybe some of the challenges that we're having, which is, you know, we as a committee only represent a certain number of groups of people as well. And we want to make sure that I think we can incorporate variety of perspectives, particularly of the impacted groups that we might be providing a statement on as well, certainly. So
and part of the commitment for being part of this group, maybe you have to respond within 24 hours or something like that, so that you're willing to do it quickly so we can move forward as quickly as we can.
Yeah, so again, just kind of something for consideration. I think that was, I thought it was a great idea. It sounds like some of the towns do have this in place today. It wasn't just Winchester, it sounds like a couple of other towns. I will also mention that many of the towns have talked about not issuing any statements anymore. So certainly the events of October 7th has brought about very, polarized points of view around the topic, and I think that there is this sense that it really doesn't matter what you say, it could be construed in a way that seems biased, one side or the other. And so some of the towns have talked about kind of a pause on all statements for now until they can kind of figure out this toolkit that we're all trying to work on together. So I think that it's understandable. There were situations that became a concern around safety for certain town HRCs and who put out statements. There were concerns that were raised around dissatisfied community members, right? And some of those concerns that were brought forward. And then just, I think what messages were being put forward in these statements. And so one particular person brought forward that in their statement, they really focused around the mental health kind of safety aspect, making sure that people felt supported, giving the number to the civil rights officer, making sure that they had that contact information for, reporting any kind of incidents of hate and those types of things. But certainly the sense that I received yesterday was that there are certainly groups out there right now who are not issuing any statements in light of some of the controversy that's happening, and putting a pause until we can kind of come together and just understand if maybe a toolkit would be beneficial for the HRCs that are out there. I think that's a good position for us to consider. for Easton right now is to kind of consider a pause on our statements, because I do think we need to think about maybe that group of people that we would like to bounce the statement off of. I think that will take some effort and kind of identification of folks there. Because that in itself is a volunteerism activity, and I think sometimes we're challenged with that civic participation of people who want to kind of support these types of initiatives. I also think too, purpose, right? Like impact. You know, are people actually reading our statements? Are people actually, going out to our website, and do they want to hear from us? Trying to understand that balance of bringing people together versus, potentially causing a divide, and certainly wanting to steer away from causing any kind of divide. So I did want to put that out there for the group to consider. The other thing I will mention is on most of these committees, there is a designated communications person. And then there's also a communications person to handle when people are dissatisfied with the communication. So, those are, again, our committee's only so big, but I think that's something that is also in place in some of these other towns as well.
Yeah, and I think as we discussed last meeting, it's putting out statements is always a very difficult thing when you go beyond your own community and you talk about more national or global kinds of issues that come up. And if we go back to our enabling mission statement, I think it may help to refocus about what we respond to and how we respond to it, and that if we're not responding to the hateful anti-Semitic graffiti at the high school, and we respond to more national kinds of things, shouldn't we be more focused on Easton and what goes on in Easton? I'm just trying to. It's very difficult for us to put out a statement that's going to satisfy everybody. And if it's focused on the town of Easton, it might make it easier for us to limit our statements. Just a thought. I haven't really played it out in my mind, but as you're talking, I was thinking about that.
I agree with Craig, because I think there's different kind of statements. There's like global statements about, what's happening across the world, and statements about very personal, intimate Easton kinds of things. And I think they're very different in some ways. And I think I kind of agree with Craig that maybe we pause the global, but we continue to think about local.
Our rule of thumb was always that it should be something that impacts our community. Like, we are Easton's Human Rights Committee, right? So, however, I think what's shifted is that these global events are impacting Easton residents personally, and that's what's hard to decipher, right? And I think that was where Karen and Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the intent of that message, was a reaction that something globally was impacting residents of Easton directly. But I mean, maybe we modify it to the event has to have taken place in Easton, you know what I mean? Or happened locally.
Or if there's a local thing in Easton, then respond to it that way.
With our website, do we have, with our website, do we have a tracker of who visits the website? Because I know Masa had got on the call, I don't remember if it was the last call, and had stated that there were some folks that were dissatisfied with the comments or the remarks put forth in October. Do we know how many people were dissatisfied? Because I do think that silence does speak volumes. Do we have a timetable on how long we would pause for? Because again, we are the Human Rights Committee, and I definitely agree that speaking or maybe downsizing it to Easton, but again, we have residents that have international connections or global connections. So are we not speaking to those residents?
Well, and to go on that, I went through, we have a history, so I don't know if we keep track. I'm assuming that we probably keep track of how many hits, but probably not who is hitting. I don't know if the website is that. And we look through, we put out a response to the anti-Asian sentiments in March of 2020, response to George Floyd, human rights awareness during COVID, and then a response to the mosque shooting in New Zealand. So we do have a history of putting out statements that don't just occur here in Easton. Like a quick kind of look, it's like 50-50. So I hear your point, you know, how does it not impact? And I think that's where we've kind of come up against a wall before, where we've had this conversation and folks have said, well, should we only put out something if it impacts Easton? But aren't things impacting Easton residents even though they don't just happen within Easton? I also don't want to turn and be completely isolationist and not realize that just because we live within, you know, these borders, things don't happen that impact us. So I don't know the answer. I really don't know. You know, I hear you about silence speaks volumes. I think that was one of the issues when, you know, Karen and I talked about with the most recent statement. If we don't put something out, that's going to also speak volumes. So I don't think that there's any possible, you know, 100% solution to Craig's point. It's always going to, statements are tricky, right? It's, if you put one out, there's folks who might be upset. If you don't put one out, there's folks who might be upset. Having it run by other people isn't going to be the panacea either, but that might help, or it might be further bogged down. I truly don't know the answer.
So what if we did this? What if, to Karen's point, we paused while we work on the toolkit and we learn from other towns and learn from the experience? But what if we put out a blanket statement on our site that I sort of loved the comment that you had shared, Karen, around like referencing support. And so what if we put out like some sort of more blanket that statement that says, you know, we condemn these types of behavior. We condemn behaviors that involve acts of hatred, and a more general sort of statement that it, you know, it is happening in the world on a continuous basis, and we realize that impacts Easton residents. And here are some resources for you, and a reminder that like what some of those resources are, so that we're directing people towards ways to find counseling and support, and reminders that the school has those resources too, and just sort of make a blanket statement while we figure out the rest of it. Because I also think that there's always a line on like regional versus local, but then in global and what that looks like, but then there's also a line on what stands up to a point where we comment, you know, and I haven't been here long enough to figure out how you all make that decision, but there are horrible things happening all the time. And so I wonder if like a more general statement on the fact that we support everyone and that we won't stand for those types of actions, and that's what we're here for, and what some of the resources are, might allow us to at least not be silent while not addressing a particular group or incident or time period.
Yeah, I think the blanket statement would be awesome instead of just completely being silent.
Yeah, I think, Kelly, you're hitting on something that if we go back to our mission statement, that might be a way to reiterate that in a more sophisticated, quote unquote, way, if you will. But at the same time, I'm clear that no matter what we say, somebody's not going to be happy with us. And you know, why didn't you say it about this group or that group or the 47 other groups? Or, I mean, I think that's one of the difficult parts about what's going on in the world, and what's going on in Easton. Because I'm sure that there are all kinds of different groups in Easton who have different feelings about different things that are happening all over the world. So it's not an easy solution at all. But I think it's worth going back and looking at the mission statement and saying, well, you know, can we make that a little bit more impactful, if you will, if we choose to do that?
You know, I think on our website, we have a number of different statements that say that those things, those are our mission, and you can see that. But I don't think it's a bad idea to think about issuing a new statement that says, in these troubled times, we want to make sure that everybody understands this is where we stand, and this is where we want everyone in our community to join us, and just put it out there. And I think that's a good suggestion to think of that as something we do while we're positive.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. I think that for me, I've always wanted our statement to have some sort of education opportunity or call to action or some sort of something that has substance than, you know, we just don't agree with an action that happened, right? Like I really want to be able to empower people or educate people or be a resource to people, you know, something along those lines. And certainly the mental health support, you know, safety, right? Like knowing how to report incidents, those types of things kind of come to mind for sure. So I'm very open to doing that. I think, you know, and because there was concerns about our last statement, I guess I don't love that that's the last statement on our site either, right? So I would like to kind of refresh that and have something a little bit more representative of more groups and ensuring that there's a kind of a more of a unity focused around, you know, again, like we talk about resources, other opportunities to share information, education opportunities. So I guess also what I need is support. So, you know, typically when communications come about, it kind of defaults to me. I lean on Beth a lot. I think that capacity tends to be challenging. So I don't know if anybody is inclined to try to draft a more generic statement and begin to start to pull some resources together, but would love some help on that.
Right, are you thinking that we could just repost, and not to be kind of snarky, but there's at least 2 posts already about inappropriate graffiti at OA. So I don't want to just repost those. We could do something, you know, in which we just break down to Craig's point, we break down what our HRC, we could even just repost our mission statement and just always have in times like these, boom, but that's somewhat generic. And I think we're still back in the same situation. When do we post that? When do we even post that message versus when do we not post that message? Even if it's incredibly generic, what is going to be the trigger? Only if it impacts something that happens in Easton, or if it's, you know, if there's another horrific shooting that's racially motivated, are we not going to post about that? Because we've had a history of doing that as well. So, you know, we posted when there was a synagogue, we posted when there was the mosque shooting, we posted with George Floyd. So I think we have to figure that piece out. And we've tried to direct the resources, to Karen's point, specific to what the incident was. It's one thing to just post general mental health, absolutely, but you also want to give additional resources to what the actual event that triggered the statement was in the first place.
I think Beth makes some very, very good points. And again, it's not an easy thing, Karen. We can't, you know, you may make a statement that you think is fairly generic and all-inclusive, and somebody's not going to be happy with it because it isn't specific enough, or it's too specific, or it doesn't address group A, B, C, and D. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess it's obviously this is, you know, something that we probably all should think about a little bit more. It doesn't need to be kind of decided in this one meeting, but certainly something that as an HRC, we should kind of come to a good plan forward. I'm certainly going to continue to meet with this coalition. They plan to continue to try to build out this toolkit piece, which I will certainly continue to bring those ideas forward. And there are actually meeting minutes that somebody's working on, so I'll get that distributed to this group, because I'm certainly not capturing all of the greatness that was discussed yesterday. Dignity Alliance, Craig, that's the group that was mentioned as some sort of poll. You can kind of poll your message. I don't know, some people have mentioned that they have used that before in the past. I did not vet it, I haven't looked at it, but somebody referenced it.
I'd be curious to look that up and see, because I was going to ask you, from your discussions with that group, particularly if it's Winchester, and could they give us some guidance as to who they actually talk to? What are the kinds of people that they reach out to? Maybe Kathy's right. Maybe we have a whole bunch of those people within the ally list, or maybe they're more talking about a Dignity Alliance group or some kind of a professional group that helps you articulate positions or responses to something.
Yeah, the Winchester one was definitely more informal. They said they call them community advisors. It's a diverse group of people who will draw on their experience and kind of get their perspective, particularly if there were, if they were the impacted group that the subject is kind of talking through. Certainly that they would reach out to them. And the Dignity Alliance, I want to say, someone said what it does is it puts out a poll on a statement. People can sign onto it as an individual or an organization, and then go ahead and provide input on that statement. The challenge sometimes that I see too, and again, I'm also one of those people who I'm a move to action kind of person. So I'm not very much like a analysis paralysis person, but I think sometimes the more you overanalyze, we're never going to put out a statement. If we're consulting with 17 people before we can put something out, it'll be a year before we get that perfect statement that everyone loves. Because we went through this with the proclamation and RMK. I mean, we certainly, I felt that directly. It's just such a difficult topic because everybody has preference on language and I don't know, I just think that's a very difficult thing to do.
And to that point, Karen, I think the proclamation, I would say the folks who were working on that were all very much aligned in anti-racism.
Yes.
So I look at a statement in which there might be, take what is the current statement at issue. I don't think that we would ever receive across the board, 100% everybody loves the statement. I think it would be back to the same place where we just don't put one out, because not all of the sides are going to agree to what is stated. So I worry about that. I worry, much to your point, Karen, about paralysis and sometimes too many cooks make terrible soup as well. So there's that adage as well.
I also think that if you try to respond to every incident that occurs, I think we'll drive ourselves crazy trying to do that, because there's so many things that are happening.
Well, I think that's why thinking about trying to create a new sort of global response that in these times, and given what's happening, this is where we stand. And whether we go forward with a smaller group that we try to vet things through, I could see it be a small group of people that we just fly it by before we put it out. We're not going to please everybody, totally for sure. And we have to decide what kind of statements we want to make and when we want to make them as a community.
Does anyone know if the town has guidelines to fall back on, or even the schools? Because sometimes they put out statements and sometimes they don't, or is it just every group and organization makes up their own guidelines. Like, I'm sure that the police department has guidelines. I'm sure that the schools, I don't know. I wonder if there's anything we could fall back on. Because this could be a full-time job for a whole group of people to manage communication, you know?
I'd be shocked if they did. I can tell you I was on a call last week, or actually it wasn't a call, it was an email chain, and there's a bunch of colleges looking to establish the exact same thing. Is there a rubric? Is there a policy? What actually triggers because of the backlash? And we're having this exact same conversation. Do we just not issue statements? Or what happens if we don't issue statements? So we are not the only organization that is in this exact same situation. Whatever I can find from them, because like I said, it's ongoing, I can certainly bring to the group as well.
I can ask at the school front too. I think the thought process that I had around the suggestion of the pause and preparing a blanket statement was twofold. One is we're too small to be bleeding edge in terms of figuring this out, and there's a lot of people working on it, including the coalition and the group you mentioned, Beth, and we aren't going to please everyone. It's a complex thing, and everyone, I think, has been caught in this moment where, in the intent to do good and right, it was it became a very complex set of conversations that hindsight influenced how people perceived it personally, as opposed to like in that moment. And so I do think my suggestion was just simply maybe we take the time, because there's so much to this discussion, to learn from what others are learning, even learn how they socialize in agreement. Because I would think if you're socializing with a group of people, you would never get to an answer. But maybe they have figured out some secret sauce to, like, all people are saying is, am I offended by this statement? Yes or no? I don't know how they're vetting it, but it would be good, because we could wordsmith with 30 people and we never get anywhere. So maybe there's an opportunity to learn for a period of time, and to Karen's point, at the same time, put a message that reiterates our mission and some of those things, so that it's the top thing on the page, because this is our most recent statement, so that while we're pausing, we at least have the ability to put a more blanket statement out there and learn along with everybody else who's learning how to handle this complex set of challenges, so we offend the least number of people, even though we won't please everyone all the time.
Okay, so more to come. It sounds like maybe what Kelly's recommending is a blanket statement, a little bit more around reiteration. I won't call it a blanket statement, but more of a reiteration of our mission and vision. And would somebody, well, first, is there a vote maybe from our committee on putting something out there like that? And then tangentially, who would be interested in drafting it?
I think the first thing is to take a look at our mission statement to see what could we improve upon aspects of that as a blanket statement that responds to some of the tragedies that are happening across the country, across the world. This is a very difficult discussion and a very difficult decision to make, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's why this coalition kind of came together and said, hey guys, we're all experiencing the same challenge. How can we help each other? And they are essentially putting together some sort of rubric, Beth. So I think that's exactly what they're trying to accomplish. I think the goal would be some sort of rubric, and then that would be the toolkit that they kind of leave us with, and we can take it or leave it, certainly up to us, but it's something that we're trying to work on together to pull together.
Karen, do we of the other communities have written such a global statement?
I'm sorry?
Do we know if any of the other communities that are in the coalition have written a global statement sort of like that?
I think Hingham just put something putting out not too long ago focused around kind of that mental health safety aspect that I was mentioning, but I don't know anything beyond that.
I'm looking, there's nothing in our mission that says we actually put out statements. It just says to confront statements and actions. So I'm not saying that just because it's not there, we don't do it. I'm just saying that there's nothing specific that says that we put out statements for it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, when it was brought up to not put out any statements, which, again, as I mentioned, some of the other committees are certainly at this point doing, just based on some of the recent experiences their committees have had. That didn't actually sit well with me either. I feel like, you know, as an HRC, we're supposed to represent marginalized groups and be the voice, and certainly to not say anything for fear of not pleasing everyone doesn't feel good. I just think that's not really where we want to land. But at the same time, I don't think we can just keep putting out the same types of statements we've been putting out. I do think we need another formula, whether it's the community advisors or at least a consideration of thinking about who our partners are, who could help provide us input on our comments and statements. And then also the narrowing down, and I think Kiana's the one who brought it up, was like, well, what do you guys use to make a decision? We're like, well, we did used to use this, but since then we've kind of evolved to this. And now there's really just no necessary like formula that we have in place. And we probably need to just finalize that formula, which certainly be so much easier to just say, Easton, if it happens in our community, we respond. Anything beyond that, that's for other entities to respond to, and we'll put out other education articles or something along those lines. But I do think what happens, and this is what I heard from folks, is that when we choose to respond to one incident and not others, we're also saying something. And that's not something that, you know, we want to do, I think. Certainly not to say one entity or one group or one community is more important to us than another, right? I think that's something that we say when we don't speak on behalf of everything. But certainly I'm not scouring the news to figure out exactly what's happening in the world. And gosh, there's just so much happening at this point.
And I think if we do transition into making
Watch your eyes, Beth.
Sorry, I'm actually watching my dog on a table, probably eating something that he shouldn't. If we do transition, I think we would have to give people a heads up as to why we don't do that anymore, why we're only commenting for Easton.
Right.
With me just coming into this, like you just said, is just coming up with that formula. You know, I feel like with being a part of the Human Rights Committee, we, you know, yes, it's a delicate decision to make with what to say, but I think people miss the point is that we're all humans, and if you hurt, we all hurt. And I think that's, if we could just make that clear, so that it's not like, okay, we're only going to speak about this incident, or we're only going to speak about that. It's, if we can just say that, like, we support it, or we feel the pain of others, because we're all one. But I understand what you're saying. I just, do we have an idea of when we would come up with a formula, or should we create a subcommittee, or something that we should, you know, table and talk about during the next meeting, or maybe come up with some ideas and send them to you?
Yeah, so why don't we do this? Why don't we, let's continue to have the conversation. I don't think it's a subcommittee opportunity, because I feel like this is something that we all want to probably weigh in on. And I'll continue to, again, take part in the coalition, see what I can bring in from there. If everybody wants to go ahead and do a little bit of research on their own, maybe bring in some ideas that you hear from your friends, other towns, workplace. I mean, you know, I think sometimes sources like universities, right? Like, I think there's a lot happening right now we could probably take and bring in and start to figure out how we want to proceed as a committee.
In the meantime, would we want to the points that have been raised before, put something out? Would we want to make it specific to what's been happening at the high school, what happened at the high school? We probably wouldn't get it out for this week, so we're gonna miss the orange ribbon thing. Which would have been great, because we could have kind of said we're aware that the high school and promote that as well, if we knew a little bit earlier. So I don't know if we just put something out, or would we make it specific to the high school, or do we table everything?
Well, Beth, I think that, you know, my reaction to that is that, we need to pause and try to figure out what it is that what are the parameters, and if Karen is able to bring back information from other groups, other towns, about how they're responding to this situation, it might be very helpful and help us, guide us as to what we want to do. I mean, obviously, there are those of us who were dramatically impacted by October 7th, and others who were not. And there are people who were dramatically impacted by what's happening in Myanmar or in China. I mean, there's so many things going on that for me, it was a very personal kind of thing. And you see what the fallout is happening at college campuses all over the country. And Beth, you and I have talked about this, is that, you know, that it is, and you've got the Congress involved, and I mean, it's a mess. And I think we need to sort of step back and think about what Deanna's saying and what Kelly was saying about, let's take a hard look at this and let Karen bring us back information from the other towns, so we have some idea of where we're going.
But I do think as a committee, we could start, people individually could start looking at what would be a statement based on our mission that we could put out that would be a more global statement that we could use. Because I think if we just wait till next month, then it'll be next month and next month.
Agreed. And I actually really love something as simple as Kiana's words. Like, the whole point is we're all one. If you hurt, we hurt. And yes, the world's a hot mess, and like, we can't possibly cover all of our bases. I you know, part of me wants to volunteer to draft one. The truth is I'm going to be traveling for like the next 3 weeks, so I can't commit to it right now. But if we all do some research and come up with some thoughts and ideas, maybe we try to time box ourselves to 2 meetings, because like Kathy said, we don't want it to be like, you know, 5 months from now and we're still on pause. I feel like we might also want to reach out, like if we could take another action item of reaching out to the ally list to see if anyone is great at this and or would want to be a part of a smaller group to review statements, or like be involved in some other way, or even has PR experience, or I don't know, like any resources. And then Karen, I feel like we did have a decision tree for comms a while back. I feel like you drafted it.
Yeah, it's really basic. It says, like, is it timely? Does it impact Easton? And I mean, I looked it up because it's part of my HRC in a box. Like, if I ever were to leave, you know, who could I give this all to? And it talks about communication and going to events and all that type of stuff. But it's so basic that it wasn't really worth sharing. But that's all it said. It's about, you know, kind of timeliness and then relevance to Easton. And at that point, we actually had a communication chair. I don't know if you remember, but Irene had kind of taken that on at one point and Allison to like kind of lead the communication piece of it. So, I mean, I think it's a big job. So I really don't necessarily think that that's like one person's duty on our group, but certainly if you gravitate towards writing and you want to kind of draft communications, certainly feel free to weigh in on that. But otherwise, I mean, I think that's it's likely going to be something that we kind of have to spread out as topics come about. Maybe, you know, based on how passionate you are about the topic. Even.
I'm also giving myself the action item of reaching out to the town to, I don't even know who owns the website, but there's gotta be a way. I'm interested to know how much traffic we get to the page, because I don't even know how impactful our statements are anyway. You know,
Right.
I guess that was my train of thought when I said maybe we should, like when I asked if the town or the schools kind of had a protocol, because I feel like our statements are more impactful when they're tied with other town organizations. I think they get more visibility, and that partnership speaks volumes, I think. I don't know. So many thoughts. Maybe we do need a subcommittee.
Well, you know, I think that our statements, when we send them out to our allies, then again, we're hitting the choir, and that's where it goes. And I do not think very many people who are not an ally ever look at our website.
Yeah, I'm sure we could get statistics about visits, Amy, if we were to, I'm sure somebody, maybe somebody in town that Connor can point me to see if I can get information around that. I can look into that as well.
So Karen, I think you should charge each and every one of us to be thinking about what a global statement might look like.
Okay, let's do that. Let's try and come up with something by our next meeting. If you wanted to share your drafts with me, I can try and pull something together by our next meeting and distribute that. Please don't share that with everyone. We're not voting on anything, right? I'll just kind of pull that together, and then I'll get something out before our next discussion in March. Okay, thank you, everyone. So, treasurer update. We have a treasurer, that's Kathy.
We have $4,126.96.
Okay, and no additional entries to submit at this point. We're all kind of tied out.
Anybody have any?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So website update, Amy, I guess maybe just looking into our statistics for the website.
Yeah, and I want to take down the ADL links. I forgot to do that after talking to Masa last month. I'll do that as soon as I can. And if anyone has recommendations about, I tried to Google what she recommended replacing it with, and I don't know if she said, if I heard something different from, I don't know. I couldn't figure out exactly what she meant. So if people have suggestions to replace links, let me know. But I'll take the ADL stuff down for now.
Did she indicate to you what it was about? I mean, I forgot to follow up with her about what it was about the ADL that she had a problem with, or that other groups had a problem.
I honestly don't know. I think a couple people on this call in the committee knew.
No, I think there's a concern about the ADL and their positioning since October 7th. But I actually went back to the references that we pointed to, and I think they're fine in terms of the information that they're sharing. So it's about educating around how to handle, I think there was a campus one, right? Like how to handle if you run into like hate crimes on campus or situations like that. I mean, I feel like the content is fine. I think the concern was the pointing to ADL, which is currently under controversy.
I think it was some statements that the director had made a while ago. I just want to remind folks that we do have ADL groups in our schools too. So if we're going to take those down just because of the organization, we have ADL sponsored leadership groups in the schools. So just a point on that.
Before we take it down, can we have a conversation with Masa about can I have a conversation with Masa about what the issue was, so that
Absolutely.
we don't react, we respond appropriately? Because I don't know what the references are. So I'd be happy to reach out to Masa and just have a conversation with her over a cup of coffee.
Cool, okay,
That's
so
okay.
that's the action item, and I'll pause until we have a better plan.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the website, Amy? Sorry.
Mm-mm.
All right. Public participate, well, actually, let's see. Yes, well, I do see someone on, I just wanna make sure that they actually do wanna participate. So either, I just sent a note through chat, or if you would like to, like, raise your hand. Okay, perfect.
Is that Masa? Is Masa on there?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna promote her to panelist. Hello.
Hello, Masa.
How are you all? Oh, let me rename myself. This is my work. Here we go.
So Moss, I just need you to state your name and address for our minutes.
Yeah, Masa Kanbabi, 3 Harlow Street.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm so impressed and proud of all of you and your very thoughtful conversation on this last section especially, but I loved hearing about everything that you were talking about, all the activities. Yeah, so absolutely thank you so much for really putting a lot of thought and wanting to be inclusive and really trying to make sure that all of the members' needs of our community, you know, are heard, and that you know, I think I actually loved what Kiana said as well. You know, your pain is my pain, and that's the thing. I think we're also closely tied to one another in our humanity, that recognizing, you know, difficulties, pain, suffering really helps bring people together. So there was a lot you covered. So it's difficult for me to try to address some of the different things that came up. I love the idea that you talked about, Karen, about working with some of the other communities and their groups, because we are all going through this very difficult time. As Craig said, it's, you know, very emotional, very personal to so many, and we want to, you know, recognize that and, you know, be there to help support people. And so I love the aspect also related to mental health and kind of letting people know that they're not alone and that there are resources for them if they're going through a difficult time. And I think, you know, especially in a town like Easton, there aren't a lot of Muslims and Arabs, and it is hard for people, you know, to feel that there is a connection with the rest of the town. So, you know, they often will find it either at the mosque or at their church or, you know, whatever religious faith they might be, or just within their cultural community. But seeing that the town of Easton is addressing it, I think is going to really help people feel, again, a little bit more of that sense of belonging. I actually tried to look up to see where I could sign up to be an ally and couldn't find that on the website. I'm sorry if I missed it, but I'd love to hear how to do that.
I'll take care of you, Martha.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much. I can drop my email in the chat for you, Catherine. I appreciate that. What else? I just wanted to talk about a couple other things. I too struggle very much with what kind of statement, right? What kinds of things to be posted, because of a lot of the issues you all talked about, right? As, oh, are you saying something that is going to then offend somebody else? Is someone going to feel that they weren't included in the statement? And so, you know, Craig, I definitely hear you on that and agree with you. And I think there are ways, though, to try to address kind of a more global community sense, so that we're not really leaving, you know, creating situations that would make people feel left out. But I also do agree with what you said, Karen, about, you know, not overanalyzing things. And I know as a lawyer, sometimes I'm guilty of that myself, and that's where sometimes if you just keep it really simple and heartfelt, something along the lines of what Kiana mentioned, I think that goes a long way. And yes, unfortunately, we will never make everybody happy, but I don't think that should stop us from addressing situations like this. And I think this, situation unfortunately is is more complicated because there are, different sides. I hate using words like that. I'm trying to find a better way to do it. There are different perspectives, and so it's not sometimes so simple as police brutality, for example, or situations where there aren't kind of necessarily multiple perspectives. So coming up with this toolkit to address different situations, I think, will be a really nice guiding light for the committee going forward. And I think there was just one other point I was going to make, but yeah, I guess this issue that what does happen globally often does impact us locally, and so how do we balance that? And again, that's a difficult situation. So it goes back to that coalition coming together and trying to come up with ways, and having maybe this ally group who can be available to help when complicated situations come up, so that we're making sure that we are representing different marginalized groups. Because Karen, I loved what you said about this is the Human Rights Committee, and you really want to follow through with your mission and make sure that you're addressing all human rights and anti-hate and things like that. So anyway, I'm always available to be a resource, and thank you all again so much for your very thoughtful discussion.
Thank you, Masa, and thank you for your comments and for joining today. We don't always get public participation, but certainly is welcomed, and recognize that I know you have a lot of experience, and certainly whatever you can share with us, we benefit from, absolutely. So thank you. Okay, so I don't see anyone else. Oh, actually, I see another person. I don't know if they want to speak, but if you do like to speak, just go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I don't think so. Okay. All right, so our next meeting looks like it'll be scheduled for, gosh, the first Tuesday in March, which is March 5th.
Okay, March 5th is also the presidential primary, so I don't know if you want to, since the polls will still be open until 8 o'clock in the evening, I don't know if you want to meet that evening, or do you want to look to another night? It's all entirely up to the committee. I may not be able to be at the meeting if
Say we look to another night.
Okay. How about the 13th?
I will be away, so I won't be able to do that, but that is should not prevent anything.
Kathy, are you traveling again, or are you going to be home for a bit?
I could be away the first week or the second week, I don't know. So don't look at me.
what's with the why not the 12th of March, Darren? That's the Tuesday, the following Tuesday.
I don't know, I went to February after you said March 5th wasn't working, so I'm off a month here.
So March 12th is that Tuesday
March
night.
12th.
Is that a problem for people?
I will
Well, it is-
definitely not be there. It is Shelley's birthday, so I prefer to stay married.
Kelly, did
That's
you also
kind of
have a
you.
conflict on the 12th? I'm sorry. I said the wrong date earlier.
Yeah, no, I'm traveling for work the 11th, 12th, and 13th, and my schedule is not my own, so maybe I will make it. It's unclear.
Okay. What about if we moved it to another day of the week, like the Wednesday the 6th, instead of a whole week later?
That's the 6th is fine with me. I don't, what about other people?
Fine with me.
Sounds me.
Same here.
Okay, let's do that instead of waiting another month, just another week, I'm sorry, because I do think we gotta start revving up Pride activities and such. Okay. All right, so next meeting will be March 6th, Wednesday, March 6th. I will go ahead and make sure I update the Zoom request through town, and yes, okay. All right, everyone, thank you for an excellent meeting, excellent engagement, great topics, tackling hard stuff here. Really appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your week and stay healthy.
Oh wait, do we need to vote to adjourn?
Oh gosh, all right, fine. Can we vote to adjourn?
Our motion.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, let's vote to adjourn.
Barger, yes.
7:56. Chan, yes.
Devonshire, yes.
Emmons, yes.
Oster, yes.
Gershman, yes.
Emma Gershman, yes.
Versio, yes.
All right, we did it. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Good.
night.
Have a good night.
See you soon.
Great night, everyone.